Yeah. Up in Lexus like it's 07, I just hit a lick, gotta hit the next one. Last year, I know you learned your lesson, I could GPS you if you need a dressing. What's up about a bigger homie, but I'm 1 year older than my little homie. 09, it was spitting on me, but I'm young, money got it written on me. Okay, now we got some action. Everything I said it happened. That boy light is Michael Jackson. But on verses, he been blacking. Chasing women to distract.
To the John Nabors Show here on Natty State Sports. Well, right now here on the Down the Field podcast, we are joined by a very special guest. I guess actually, technically, I'm the guest, but since I'm going to go ahead and knock out the intro for these guys, either way, they're joining on the podcast as well, as we're going to have some fun talking about it. We have Hayden, Evan, and Afton here on the Down the Field podcast. And fellas, there's your intro. Hopefully I did a good enough job for you and did it some justice, but appreciate you having me on the podcast nonetheless.
That was amazing. Hayden, you want to kick us off?
All right.
So we got some different questions this time. It's not going to be the same ones from last week.
Okay.
We wanted to kind of change parts of them up, but there's still some of the same ones.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Hold on. Okay. So my first question is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, basically that.
Well, in the next 5 years, I see myself as being the owner and founder of the most respectable, credible, and successful digital media company in the state of Arkansas dealing with sports called Natty State Sports. I see it being the forefront and the pioneer of how all media is consumed, whether it's via podcast or video content or digital marketing and everything in the state of Arkansas, not just for sports, but for everything in dealing with outdoors, food, business, politics, all the above. So in 5 years, that's where I hope to see myself, because that's the whole goal of this whole company and the goal that I have for this company moving forward.
Yeah. And you were talking about, Natty State Sports. What's kind of the goal and plan that you have for that kind of moving forward? Is there any different things you want to change up, or kind of just keeping it pretty basic?
Well, I know that where we've started and the direction we're going has been highly successful, and the response has been great. We've had a huge amount of response from it. But, sports, once we get settled into that and kind of find our footing and knowing that we have a podcast network, knowing that we have student athletes with the University of Arkansas doing podcasts with us, I really want to get into at least the next phase of it, into outdoors. Now, I'm not an outdoorsman by any stretch, but I do know that this is the reason it's Natty State, natural state. It's the Arkansas state. It's the state of Arkansas. And the Arkansas state itself is very big into outdoors. And so I would love to have the next step, major step of ours, be getting into that realm, getting into that area of having outdoors podcast, obviously not hosted by me, somebody who's a lot more capable than me, doing it that way, and to get involved with just a whole new demo and a whole new market. I'm also wanting to get into more of a female-driven market too, because, sports, women love sports, but it's definitely male-dominated. And I would love to have a female digital landscape too, where that kind of appeals more to them, and to dive into that to where we have something for everybody in the state of Arkansas, regardless of who you are or how old or how young. There's always something you can dive into here and to make us be a part of your day every day.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Crap, my phone turned off. So I know I asked you this last time, but what fan base can you just completely not stand whatsoever?
Well, I kind of try to hate everyone equally, but I would say, I've really grown to hate certain sports of certain teams. So I don't really have any problems with Auburn football fans necessarily, but the Auburn basketball fans are kind of lame. And same thing with Alabama football fans, and Alabama basketball fans are lame because they just realized that basketball exists like 6 years ago. And so they've become this obnoxious fan base that they just don't get it. But they're pretty awful. A&M fans are just weird. You can't have 68 different things and movements you have to do with your hands in a football game and you have to learn them. Like, that's not the point. And the fact that you make people do that is a cult. So A&M's pretty annoying. I mean, that's as far as just ones, it kind of is cyclical. Like, Missouri fans are just got the little brother syndrome of everybody. Like, I know they had a really good football season, but good grief, they suck in every sport besides football. And even in football, they're not great. I mean, they had a good year this past year, but overall in general, they're not that great. So, but they just got this syndrome of, like, no, the state of Missouri, the two biggest and best cities in Missouri is St. Louis and Kansas City, and they're both trying to move us quickly out of the state. That's why they're bordering other states, because Missouri sucks so bad. So, I don't know. Like, those would probably just be a few of the ones that I would bring up.
All right. So on your main channel, the three sport like headlines you talk about is Arkansas football, baseball, and basketball. Out of those three, which one is your favorite to talk about, and which one is your favorite to watch?
Well, that's a great question. Basketball up until this year was my favorite to cover because it was so much fun to be able to. Well, first off, I have a good relationship with Coach Muss. Like, me and him, like, I got to go to his Halloween party, for crying out loud. Like, so building a relationship with him and some of the assistants and some of the players has been really awesome. But also just going to Des Moines, going to Buffalo, going to San Francisco, going to Vegas, going to all these different places where the team had a lot of success, and seeing it in person of, Arkansas beating Kansas and Arkansas beating Gonzaga was just the highlight of my career. Like, that's tops. It's hard to beat that. So I would say my favorite to cover normally, again, other than this year's basketball, my favorite to watch though is always going to be football. Like, just because I've always been, college football is my favorite sport. I've always been a Razorback football fan. Football is my favorite sport. And even when the team's not doing great, there's just something about the tailgating. There's something about the pageantry, the fandom, the fun, the content, the energy, the vibe, the everything about it is very fun. And so football is probably my favorite to watch. Basketball is my favorite to cover.
So you said football was your favorite to watch. I see you have the Jets helmet on your desk. Are you a Jets fan? Are you into a lot of pro sports, or is it mainly just kind of Arkansas and local teams?
I'm into pro sports in the very basic way, but yes, I am a Jets fan. This is actually my dad's helmet that he had when he was a kid, because he was a big Joe Namath fan. And so I kind of kept this because where my fandom of the Jets came from, because when I was a kid, I was into football, and if you had a helmet around, you wanted to wear it, and this is what I wore. And so being able to wear this, and my favorite color was green too, it just kind of fit. And really, when I got into football and first started watching, the Jets are actually pretty good. So it all kind of fit together. But the Jets are really the only pro team I follow pretty religiously, or at least pretty closely. I've been a Celtics fan in basketball in the NBA, and it's mainly due to the fact that Joe Johnson was one of my favorite Razorback basketball players, and he got drafted by him back in the early 2000s. I kind of followed them ever since. And of course, when they were really good with the big three, I had some fun with that. And in baseball, I don't pretend to be a fan of any particular team, but there are particular players I really like. And I've always found myself kind of rooting for, again, not fans of them, but rooting for the Dodgers and the Red Sox. And the reason being is because I'm a big Manny Ramirez fan. I always loved Manny Ramirez. And when I really started watching him was when he was at the Red Sox, and also then got traded to the Dodgers. So those are the two teams I'm in. But yeah, college sports is really where my passion is. But I'll still watch pro sports on occasion whenever it's on.
So my next question is, so what is it like being known or associated with the Hogs? Like, just knowing that they know your name, they know who you are, you're like a household name. Like, what is that like?
Well, sometimes I have to kind of like think about that, because I don't see myself in that way. And it's just, I found something that I really enjoy doing, and was just talking about the Razorbacks. And I've been very fortunate and blessed enough to be able to make a living out of it and to build a brand. And I'd like to think that whatever it is I'm doing something right, because, I'm in this position. But it's kind of an honor because I grew up a Razorback fan, and I grew up here in the state of Arkansas. Fayetteville's my hometown, and I always wanted to do something like this in some capacity, but I didn't really know what. And I've just been very thankful for that, and to be able to stick with it, and to be able to, learn so much in the industry by working at different radio stations, doing different podcasts, doing what I'm doing now with Natty State Sports. It's been a learning experience to where it's just a continue growing thing. You just kind of take everything, mix the good, the bad, you learn a lot and put it together. And what comes out of it is just nice to know that there are people out there, and whether it's in the state of Arkansas or outside the state of Arkansas, there are actual real people out there that want to hear what I have to say. And I think that that's a funny thing to me, because normally I'm just full of it, and I just, I'm kind of BSing around, but it's nice to know that I can relate. I think I like relating with people, and I like relating with fans. And because at the end of the day, I'm a Razorback fan, I'm an Arkansan, and, there's 3 million people or whatever that are the same way as me. So I think it's just the relatability and being able to talk about something that we can all get on board with and all enjoy is a pretty cool thing, and a pretty humbling thing, and a very honored type of thing for me.
So like when you became an Arkansas fan, like at a very young age and up until now, like what are some of your favorite Razorback moments, that including baseball, basketball, and football?
Well, basketball wise, I kind of mentioned it with going and watching Arkansas beat Kansas in the tournament and beating Gonzaga, and those games, like those experiences were awesome. I vaguely remember the national championship game of '94, but I wasn't old enough to appreciate it. But I would say just the recent success of Razorback basketball, and just being there in those games and at those games, and seeing and being in the locker room afterwards, because that was another cool thing I forgot to mention, is like I got to go to the locker room right after the game ended and see that celebration and that madness and that chaos. So I'd say in basketball, that's definitely up there. Baseball, there's been a lot of them. Baseball, I think the Charlie Welch home run a few years ago was pretty awesome. Being there in person for that, because that was pandemonium, and Baum Walker. That was great. Going to Oklahoma State, and I was at that Stillwater Regional, where Jalen Battles, as I like to call him, blasted a grand slam. And then Hagen Smith just blasted one down the pipes on Rock Reggio. That was probably one of the cool moments in baseball. Football, I mean, man, those Petrino years were really fun. I was a student there for that. And, being able to know that, like, you went into every game feeling confident was great. I love the Cotton Bowl victory was awesome. Beating LSU down in Little Rock in 2010 to go to the Sugar Bowl was awesome. Honestly, in football, though, just because I think I've grown to appreciate it a lot more now, seeing Darren McFadden run for 321 yards in a single game in person was, that's something that, like, again, I knew it was great at the time, but to see just how, like, looking back on how ridiculous that was, and how it's a record that probably won't be broken, is something that I think I really grew to appreciate. So those are just some of the few moments that really stood out to me.
This is a question.
Evan,
Yeah.
before you say that, I want to say one thing.
Okay.
Battles deep into the night. No kidding.
Yeah. I laugh at that clip because that guy on that thing, it's just, I think it's funny that he says that, but then he just, oh no, like he was not expecting it at all. So yeah, the call, I didn't get to hear the call live, but going back, like, the play was great, but the call, like, was even funnier, and he made it even more epic.
This is a question I ask. I've asked pretty much everybody we've interviewed. It's kind of more of like a silly question, but let's say you're really hungry and you got to go to like a go-to spot. It doesn't have to be just like nationwide. It can be some local spot too. But what would you say is like the go-to place you want to go to?
Man, well, I'm a big fan of food, so that's a tough question. Man, if I'm just talking about in my general feeling, Slim's has always been kind of a go-to for me. Slim Chickens. I always would go there on, either after the next day after a long night on Dixon Street, or like just if I need something quick, easy, because I know what I'm getting there. It's like I know it's solid, but Slim's always great. I've always been a fan of Taco Bell, like just even before it became cool. But I always go there. If we're talking about here, though, like I'm a big Lucky Luke's fan here in Fayetteville. They have some of the best wings ever, so I love going and getting their wings. I love Mexican food, so I'm glad that Fayetteville Taco and Tamales here, because that was actually based out of Heights Taco and Tamale in Little Rock, and that was one of my favorite Mexican restaurants. So love that place too. Love Hugo's here in Fayetteville, which is right next to my office. Same with Loaf and Joe's too. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a lot. I love food, and I love all aspects of food, and love most restaurants. But I'd say like those are kind of for the most part, my go-to places, I'd say.
We're going to have to try out that Lucky Luke's. I love me some good wings.
Oh, yeah. Well, to me, because they fry them and they smoke them. It's like together. And so, they're on Wednesdays, they're $1 wing night. And so it's packed. It's a dive bar, and it's like very small and very packed, but it's worth the price of admission, and it's worth the wait if you can get there. They're awesome.
So this is a different question from last week. What did you do like growing up that might have led you to what you do today, or like what maybe influenced what you do today as a profession?
Man, I know I've thought about this, and it's a great question. Honestly, I'd have to say it was something that I saw with my grandfather, who I was very close with and admired. And he did this something. I'll try to make a long story short. But essentially, I was 16 years old, and I wanted to drive around everywhere. I had just got my license. I wanted to drive. And my grandfather, when he was older, he had a lot of doctor's appointments in Little Rock he had to go to, and he had to go to the VA hospital a lot. And he offered me the invitation to drive him from Rabbit Ridge, Arkansas, which is where my family farm's at, which is about an hour away from Little Rock, to his appointments. And I didn't care. I just wanted to drive. And I remember going down there and driving him, and we went to this waiting room. And I think I was 16 years old. We went to this waiting room. There's 100 people in this waiting room. It was packed, crowded. It was loud. It was like just so much going on. It was chaos. And in fact, I didn't even have a place to sit. There was only one place to sit. So I had my grandfather sit there, and I kind of sat off to the side. And if you knew my grandfather, he was an incredible businessman. And my grandmother always said he could have been a politician if he could have taken criticism. But he just knew everybody, and he never had a conversation with a stranger. And I remember like somebody from across the waiting room said, "Are you James G. Nabors?" Which made him get so excited if somebody recognized him. Because he was kind of that confident guy who just loved getting the attention. And I remember he kind of popped up and he said yes, and they started talking a little bit, and he started going through this story, just talking with these people. I didn't know who they were, and I was kind of getting bored or whatever, because this is really before cell phones. You could just get on your phone. But I remember like that waiting room getting like quieter and quieter and quieter until the only voice that was being heard in that room was my grandfather. Like these just complete strangers. And like I just thought that was so weird and like incredible. And in fact, there was a lady that got called in to come into the office, to the doctor's office. And she even said, she's like, "Hold on, I want to have him finish this story." Cause he just had a way about him. And so anyways, he got called in the office or whatever, and we go in there. But at the time, and again, I knew it was pretty crazy, but I say all that to say this, that influenced me in a way where like I wanted to do something that could captivate people. I wanted to do something that could captivate an audience, where just simply what I'm saying or how I'm saying it or who I'm saying it to demands people to just kind of drop what they're doing, or to gain that type of credibility and that type of respect to where people listen. Now, that may come across as like arrogant or anything, and it's not meant to be, but it's more of to be able to have that type of power. Like, you can be a great business person, you can be a great lawyer, you can be a great doctor, you can do all these things that are so great with the actions, but to be able to do something with just simply your speech, to be able to get people reeled in is a truly incredible thing. That it's not just something you go to school for. It's not just something you can read a book and figure out exactly how to do it. It's something you just have to understand. And he had that. And I'm not near as good as he was, but I would say, again, as a kid, that really made me want to do something like that. And ever since that happened, and ever since that day, I've been kind of working towards that. So long story short, yeah, I'd say that's the inspiration of kind of where I was as a kid and what made me want to do something to this extent like I'm doing now.
All right. So summertime, like baseball season's over. There's like no Hawk sports at all. What's your daily schedule usually like during those times?
Oh gosh. Well, now it's like absurd. It's like I got 14-hour days that I'm putting in every day. But I would say like this week is going to be pretty crazy because you have baseball, you still have basketball, and you have spring practice starting up. So it's like, luckily I got some great employees that we can balance it out and help. But usually it's like I wake up, I try to go to the gym as much as I can in the mornings, get done with that, and then I come into the office and kind of just do meetings. I meet with the guys. I meet with potential business partners. I meet with potential clients, sponsors, all of that. Just people that we can get involved in partnering with us here at Natty State. Put some stuff together. I do stuff for my show, show prep, imaging, video, all of that. Try to help the guys out when they need it too. I'd say that's kind of like the main thing. And then I do my show. And then if there's a press conference or something, I try to go to it. Like tomorrow, I'm going to be going to the press conference for Sam Pittman and try to do that. Or if there's a game or anything, just try to be there, try to be present, try to make an appearance as much as possible. So it's really all over the place. It just depends on the time of year. But, around this time of year, or at least when it gets closer to summertime too, it'll start to slow up. But yeah, it's kind of all over the place right now. But that's usually kind of what a day basically looks like. But it changes each and every day.
This is another kind of more like non-sports related question, but are you like into a lot of music? And if you are, are you into different bands or different artists or?
Yeah. So I'm a huge music guy. Now, I'm not musically talented. Like I don't play instruments and I can't sing, but I do love music. And I know it's cliche to say, but it's true. Like I do love all different types of music. As you can probably see in the poster behind me, I'm a huge Justin Timberlake fan, and I'm not ashamed of that. Like, I am a huge Justin Timberlake fan. In fact, I'm seeing him in concert here in April, so I'm really pumped. But, I love all, truly, like, I love rock and I love rap. I love R&B. I love pop music. I love everything. I will say, though, that probably the weirdest thing is that, and not many people know this, but I have a certain type of music I listen to when I'm working out at the gym and a certain type of music I'm listening to when I'm working, that if you walked into my office or if you heard what I was listening to, you'd be like, what in the world is this person doing? Like, what is he listening to? And when I'm in work mode, I like to listen to music or movie scores. I like to listen to the certain movies that I love and like these epic scores that they have, like the soundtrack of them. I don't know why, but I feel better when I do. And when I'm working out, I usually listen to like epic trailer music, like instrumental, like orchestra and stuff. So again, it's like I love all types of music, and it just depends on the mood I'm in. But it can vary from just how I'm feeling to what I like and what's on my Spotify list. But yeah, my Spotify list always looks insane every year when it does a recap because it's all over the place. Like there's all over the place on what I love.
What I was gonna say. Oh, what the heck? No. These stupid things keep popping up. What I was gonna say is a joke that Hayden made before. but is the Charlie Brown theme song in your workout playlist?
It is not. It is not. As much as that, I do appreciate that song. No, it is that's the type of song that I would say I'm more likely to work to that type of song than I would be to work out in that type of song. So yeah, I'm thinking more of course, I don't even know if you guys kids have seen this movie, but like thinking more of like Brave Gladiator and like The Dark Knight, like Christopher Nolan type music and songs and stuff, like things like that. It's kind of what I'm looking more towards.
So I'm going to combine these two questions. So, I mean, you've watched a lot of hog sports. Growing up, what was your favorite all-time player, and what is your favorite current player?
Favorite all-time player is Matt Jones. I mean, he was my hero growing up. That guy could do no wrong. And not only because of his epic moments and his epic wins, but just, again, kind of something you appreciate after the fact. But this was a guy who was 6'6", 235 pounds, had a 40-inch vertical, ran a 4.37 playing quarterback back in the early 2000s. Like, that just didn't exist. That didn't happen. If Matt Jones was playing today in today's standard, like, he would be a Heisman Trophy winner, hands down. So he's my favorite player of all time. And current player, and you're talking about just any sport, right? It can be any sport?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what sport, track, field, whatever.
Okay. Man, that's tough. I would say my favorite player. I love Peyton Stovall. Like, he's my guy. And I know he's hurt and he's going to be back, but Peyton Stovall's a good kid and an awesome dude and guy that is, going to be an incredible Major League Baseball player. And he was a highly regarded kid coming out of Louisiana, coming to Arkansas. It was pretty absurd that he even went to college because he was that good. But, yeah, he was always he's a guy I'm rooting for. And he said me and him have hung out a few times and we've known, like, I know his family. His family's great. So, yeah, I'd probably have to say Peyton Stovall or my guy, the no-fly zone, Hudson Clark, no-fly zone. I got to give a shout out to him because dude gets dogged for all the wrong reasons and, he needs a support system. So, yeah, I'd say one of those guys.
I'm definitely not one of those people that has dogged him before.
I figured so.
All right. So you made this quote, "Hogs by 90." How exactly did you come up with that quote?
Well, I didn't actually come up with it. I did, I guess, coin it, if you want to call it that. It was when I was in college, and there was a social media account called Old Row, and I was friends with the guys who created it, and it became a kind of a phenomenon for college campuses. And I remember that there was a time where I saw the Kentucky Wildcats. This is the first time, at least, I saw it. Not saying it originated from them, but it said that they had cats by 90. It's kind of their thing in basketball. And I thought that was really funny because I'm like, that's such a random number. That's such a random thing to say, but it cracked me up. But I was like, well, hogs by 90 makes sense because, it's like the same amount of letters. It's one syllable. It's Arkansas. There's no other hogs. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to say that. And so I started saying it. And I guess it caught on and people started kind of using it too, or at least having some fun with it. And I just stuck. I said, I'm not going to take credit for creating it, but I'm sorry. I would like to think that I'm probably the one that had said it the most because it's almost like I'm obnoxious about it. But that was the first time I saw it. That's kind of the first time I put it together, and it seemed like it was the first time I made it happen. So yeah, came from that.
So you mentioned kind of how you came up with Hogs by 90 kind of around when you were in college. Did what you major in college kind of lead to what you're doing professionally? Was that kind of linked, or was it just kind of randomly chosen just to go?
I mean, it kind of linked. I was a communications major in college because I tried business and marketing, and apparently you have to take a class called macroeconomics. And I was like, nope, because I was in there for about 2 classes, and I'm like, this ain't it. This ain't it at all. So I was trying to think because I almost got kicked out of school. I went to college for 7.5 years, and my academics were terrible, and I had to switch to something. and I needed something that could be a little bit easier for me. So I decided to go to a major that I saw a lot of attractive women in, which was communication. And so I did that. And it actually worked out because I did learn some things there. I'm not saying that that was like a thing that was directly connected with my broadcasting career, because some people go to college for broadcasting or journalism, but I didn't. But I did learn some things as far as, how to frame things and how to communicate on a very basic level. So yeah, it's something that helped me, but it wasn't something that was directly needed for me because there's a lot of people who did radio for many years that didn't even have college degrees. So it's not something that's like you have to have, but it definitely helped me out and kind of maybe getting ahead of the game a little bit too.
Okay, so I have 2 questions left. Hayden, how many do you have? All right, Evan, do you have 0? Or do you have 1? I think you glitched out. How many do you have, Evan? 1? Okay.
I got 1 left.
All right. So this question, if I can find it, it's from my dad, and he wanted me to ask you this. And he also wanted me to tell you something that he was told. So, so the question he asked was, we can all see your passion for Razorback sports. Is there a moment in time you can put your finger on and say, that's where it all started? If so, what was it?
I don't know if there's one time. I just remember when I was 10 years old, kind of becoming really into sports. And I remember my dad, was a huge Razorback fan and still is, but that's the reason I became a Razorback fan. My whole family are Razorback fans because of my dad. My dad's from Arkansas and he grew up a Razorback fan. But I just think, honestly, Razorback football was a big part of it. But again, it goes back to Matt Jones. I mean, I think Matt Jones just made me a Razorback football fan and directly made me just a Razorback fan in general because it was so much fun. And I also loved as a kid going to Bud Walton Arena for basketball. Even if the team wasn't great, there was just something special about going there. And just the smell, as weird as it is, smelling the popcorn and the hot dogs and hearing John George, his voice on the PA. There's just something kind of nostalgic about that and really fun. So I would say that just kind of that late 90s, early 2000s thing of seeing, Razorback football being pretty good. Matt Jones, when I really started going to basketball games as a kid, I think and just my dad, I think all of those things accumulated together probably is what made it happen.
So my dad also, okay. So he was talking to your brother about this interview because he worked with him for a little bit.
Yeah.
And he told me I should flame you.
Okay.
I'm not going to, but I'm just letting you know that's what he told me I should do.
Well, okay. The thing is he didn't tell you what to flame me with because there's nothing he can flame me with. So that kind of shows you exactly where he's at. But
and then my dad said I was going to ask a question on why you're the better older brother, or you're the better brother.
Oh, well, I'm better looking for one, and I'd say I got a more fun personality, and. Yeah, and I mean, I know my brother makes the money. He's over there in his, $1 billion mansion or whatever it is. So, he may have that, but, I'm the cool, fun to hang out with brother. And Jake's more the brother that you go to if you need sound financial advice, how to have a nice garden and put that together, and possibly know exactly where to invest some of your funds when it comes to the stock market. That's kind of more what Jake's style is.
So the lame stuff.
Yeah, the stuff, the adult stuff that is important, but nobody wants to do, and it's lame. So yeah.
All right. So my last question is, so what was the process like from going from just a normal podcaster to the person you are now?
I think the process was just learning so much about the industry and researching it and going through different avenues of people, of whether from different states, from different companies, and just looking at it as far as trying to be as relatable as possible, but also trying to never get complacent in saying, well, this is how it's always been done, so therefore I'm not going to change. Because that's how I feel like there's a lot of people in the radio industry kind of like that now. Very resistant to the changes of media, which I think everybody gets to that to a certain extent. But I just always try to look at things of like, I don't want to be like where I say I set where the media and the medium is being done. It's like more like I find it. And when I find it, I jump into it. You know, I don't necessarily care about Facebook, but guess what? There's a lot of people on Facebook that use it. So therefore I'm going to be in it. Same thing with YouTube, same thing with Twitter, same thing with Instagram. All these different platforms. It's like stuff that I may not like, stuff that I may not know much about, but if it's where the people are at and if it's where people are going, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn about it and I'm going to make it work. So I think just me being able to figure out exactly how to go about it and to find those places where people are at, I think is really helped me out in understanding the industry.
Okay, so my last question, obviously you have a big passion for Razorback sports and podcasting and now with Natty State Sports. Do you have any other hobbies that you kind of like to do just to kind of pass the time?
Yeah, normally I like golfing. Haven't had much chance to go here lately, but I've always enjoyed golfing. And I'm not good at it, but I'm not awful either. So I do enjoy golfing. I like going to the gym when I can too. I like cooking. Again, I haven't had much chance to do much of these things lately, but I do enjoy cooking. And I like socializing. I like going out to places and hanging out with people and talking and meeting new people. You know, going to Razorback events, going to things that are, you know, swanky parties and things. Like I like the element of being able to one-on-one, in-person talk with people and gain those relationships. So I would say those are just a few things that I normally enjoy and I try to do. But again, hadn't had much time here lately, but hopefully that opens up and I can start doing it again.
All right, so the last question we're gonna ask, and then I had a few questions like after the video. So who is like, I guess, an icon or the most famous person, however you describe famous person you've ever met or interviewed?
I think the most famous person I've ever met was former President Bill Clinton. He actually came to a Razorback basketball game when I was a student in the front row of the student section, and I got to shake his hand. And that was cool. Yeah, regardless of what your politics are or anything, if you get the chance to meet a president or former president, it's still a cool thing. But I say that talking and interviewing John Daly was really awesome. I got to do that. And, you know, honestly, somebody that, and it's kind of ironic because he just unfortunately recently passed away, but Chris Mortensen was somebody that I got to interview, which he was the coolest dude ever. Really nice and very helpful, and actually lived in Arkansas. So him, I'm trying to think of, I've interviewed Vern Lundquist, which was a really cool thing, sports wise. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the main ones of just ones that come to mind off the top of my head as far as people I've met or interviewed.
All right.
What's up, everybody? This is John Nabors, and this is the Down the Field podcast.
That way, and guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.